Hey guys, it's David from MDBootstrap.com, and today I'm gonna show you how to build this entire blog, including the main page, which lists all of our posts, as well as the single post site, which will feature the single article where we can read the entire content of the article, including different typography over here, social share buttons, and components like outer box, comments section with a form. And we're also gonna talk and learn today how to make elements sticky, like this navbar, which is sticky to the top, and these advertisements, which are getting sticky as soon as we start scrolling to the bottom. So without further ado, let's get started. As always, in order to start, we need to get the newest version of MDBootstrap, material design for Bootstrap, currently MDB 5. So just navigate to MDBootstrap.com, find a proper section for you and download the button. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, as you're gonna get all the updates, all the information regarding new versions, new updates. So that will be very, very useful for you in the future not to miss any new components. So once you download it, just unzip it, and once you unzip it, we're gonna see file structure like this one. And if you open this index.html, you're gonna see this welcome screen. Okay, I'm gonna be using Visual Studio Code. So this is the editor of my choice, of my preference. And since we're gonna create two pages, let's start with duplicating this index.html and changing its name to posts, which gonna be used for a single post. So the one which you've seen here. So this is the single post, and this is our main listing. Now I want to do a small disclaimer over here, since this is already third tutorial on MDB 5, and if you haven't watched the previous one, don't worry, you can still follow this one. But my point is that I'm not gonna be explaining some things which has been explained already in the previous tutorials in details. For example, navbar, we already talked about a lot about navbar, so I'm not gonna give you much details on how to adjust it. We're gonna focus on how to make it fixed to the top. So this is something new which you didn't know. So feel free to continue this tutorial. And we're gonna focus more on some new elements like ripple effects in this video, like this sticky content and so on. But if you feel that you are missing some knowledge, don't worry, just pause it here, check our previous videos. You're gonna find a link to them in the description down below video, and then once you finish them, you can get back to this one and everything should be clear for you. Okay, so let's start with a blog post, which is a little bit more complex component. So let's start with this one. So let's open post.html. Let's make it a little bit, oops, not this one, a little bit bigger. Okay, and we're gonna start with the very first element, which is gonna be our jumbotron. So let's navigate to docs. Let me use them in the full size, and let's go to navigation, headers, and this is where we're gonna find this jumbotron. And by the way, I strongly encourage you to explore these docs, because you're gonna find many more examples over here. But what we need for today is this jumbotron example. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy this code, open this Visual Studio. Maybe let me do it this way. I will be working on a full screen. I'm gonna make this font larger for you. So let's start with this one. I'm gonna get rid of this starter here and paste our header. So as you can see, our header already includes navbar and this jumbotron section. So let's see how it looks like. So this is our jumbotron. Now we're gonna do a quick cleanup over here. So I'm gonna get rid of things which we don't want. So we don't want this button, actually. We don't need this subheading, and we're gonna leave just this title of our article, the title. Okay, now what we also want to do, we want to change this navbar to container, not container fluid, so it will get to the center. And as I said, we're not gonna go talk much about navbar. You can check the previous tutorials on that. Now, what you have to know is that we are using this h1 element here, and according to SEO, Google SEO guidelines, there should be only one h1 element on a page. Because this is something which Google scraps for you, and so using multiple h1 components might confuse its crawlers. So just keep in mind that the best practice is just to use one. But now the problem here is that this is very huge, and if you see the final version, we want this to be a little bit more subtle, a little bit more smaller. So what we can do, thanks to MDB, is that we can style our elements to look differently. And what I mean by that is when you go to typography, you're gonna see that you can have this, hx classes, which means that you can make even a paragraph to looks like a heading. And sometimes you just want to do that because you want to have your heading for a Google, which is something else, so the title, and you want something for human, which is more human friendly, unlike the h1, which is optimized for SEO. You want something else to looks like a h1, but even though it's not. In our case, it's other way around. So we have our h1, but we won't give it a look for h4, let's say. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna add this class h4, and this will make looks our h1 paragraph as it was h4. Now the last change we want to make is we want to change this margin bottom to margin Y, and this is because we want to have this margins from top and the bottom, and we want to change it to 1, not 3. And I also covered margins in the previous tutorial, so if you don't know how to use it, just check this out. Okay, since our jumbotron is ready, let's take care of our navbar. And by saying take care, I mean let's make it fixed. What does it mean it's fixed? Let's have a look at example. So first we're gonna add an extra class to our navbar, and this class is called fixed top. Okay, and nothing happens now except that we screwed our heading, but don't worry, we're gonna fix it very soon. But let's do something else to show you how does it work. So I'm gonna add div, and I'm gonna give it a height of 2000 pixels, so something very, very big. So this will make our page scrollable. As you can see, we have a scroll over here, and now as soon as I start scrolling, you can see that this navbar got fixed to the top, and this is something which we wanted to achieve, like here, right? So this is exactly the behavior we want. This is because we want our navigation to be always visible, right? So we don't want our user, if it scrolls and it disappears, then when user want to get back to home or other category, he will have to scroll up all the way to the top. And now he doesn't have to do it, so the navigation is always visible, which is obviously a good practice. Okay, so now we messed up our heading, and this is because our navbar is out of DOM, it's out of this element, so this heading thinks that the top of the page is starting here, so it doesn't take into account this navbar. So what we have to do, we have to add some margin to this. Okay, so now we messed up with our heading, and the reason behind this is because our navbar is currently kind of out of DOM, so this heading section doesn't see it as an element, as a block element, so it's setting up from the top. So we have to add margin. This navbar has height of around 58 pixels. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add margin to our jumbotron, and we're gonna use inline styles for this one. And as you can see, this fixed our issue with a navbar. Now we can get rid of this test div because we're gonna add some more content soon. So now it's not scrollable anymore, but don't worry, we can continue to the next section. Now for the next section, we're gonna create a structure like this. So let me start with comment here. Okay, and then we're gonna create main. We're gonna add some margins already from the top and the bottom, and we're gonna use grid, Bootstrap grid. So I'm gonna create container and a row and 2 columns. So first one is gonna be LG8, and let's add some margins already. And the second one is meant for our side nav. So this is gonna be left, and that's gonna be right side. So let's have a look at this one. Yep, something didn't work. Okay, because I have a typo here, now it's working fine. And obviously, as soon as we start shrinking our screen, they will collapse one below the other. So this is exactly what we are looking for. Now let's create new section which will hold our post data. So this feature image, author, social buttons, basically all this content, including until up this this line over here. So let's create this over here. So it's post data, and let's add section here. Okay, and now we're gonna start with adding an image to our post data, this one. So let's do it. We're adding alt attribute just in case something doesn't work, and now we have this image. And now you can clearly see that this image is definitely too big for our container because our row is ending somewhere here and this image is bigger. So what we're gonna do to solve this is we're gonna make our image responsive, and by using MDB you can achieve that simply by adding image fluid class, which will make our image responsive like here. And what you can also see is that when you resize window, it will change the size of the image as well automatically to always fit the container above it. Okay, now we're gonna add some more classes to give our image a nicer look. So I'm gonna add shadow. We talked about shadow in the previous tutorial, so you can check that if you want, and rounded to make our corners rounded. And we're also gonna add some margin as we're gonna need it in the future. So now as you can see, we have this corner, we have this nicely rounded corners and a little bit of a shadow beneath. Now we want to take care about this section, so we're gonna use grid system again. So let's add row and call MD6 multiplied 2, so we have 2 columns, and inside the first column we're gonna use we're gonna add avatar of our author. So we have it image A, and we're gonna add some classes here. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna add rounded to make it round. We're gonna add shadow, and we're gonna add margin. What we also gonna do, we're gonna set height to 35 to make it smaller, and let's check the final result. Okay, so this is it. So now we also gonna add few more elements here. So within the same div, we're gonna add span published, some date like 0/10/08/2020 by some link to the author page, text dark, okay, so this is this one. Now we're gonna move to the next column where we're gonna add some social icons. So let's get back to our dogs and let's go to buttons, component buttons. Let's search for social. Okay, so here we have the social ones, and let's copy some of them. And paste it over here. Now, what we want to do is obviously we want to put this content to the right. So what we're gonna do, text right, and we want to make this button smaller. So we're gonna add few classes here. So I'm gonna add px3, which will change our padding like this, and also I'm gonna add some margin right. So we want to keep this margin when our screen becomes smaller, and I'm gonna show you what does it mean in a few seconds on the mobile device. Okay, so now it's more or less ready. Let's see how it looks on a mobile device. Okay, so as you can see, it's a little bit messy on the mobile device, so we have to fix it. And how are we gonna fix it? So basically what we're gonna do, we're gonna set all elements to align to the left and the right when we are on the big screen, but once we change to some mobile version like this one, we want this content to be centered. This is a good practice to center element on the mobile devices when you don't have enough space for everything. So let's do it now. Actually, and before we're gonna do that, I also want to change these icons a little bit. So I want to get rid of this Google and Instagram, and what I want to do, I will just put LinkedIn and comments section over here. So let me do this first. So we have LinkedIn here. And for the comment one, I just prepared myself code before. It's a very simple construction using just a button and icons. So we learn how to do it in a previous tutorial. By the way, you can see here that you can use either button or A. So depending on what's the purpose, if this is supposed to be an anchor, then you can use A, and if not, then you can use button, for example, if you want to serve some different purpose. Okay, so let's now take care of the mobile display. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna change some classes here. So to the left column, which is this one, we're gonna add following classes. So text center, which will center our text LG left, which will pull it left on the large screens. We're gonna add some margins. Again, we all explained all of that in the previous tutorial. And to the right one, we're gonna change these classes as follows: text center, text large right. And by the way, what is worth noticing is that you can change your icon color by setting up this color over here. Okay, let's see if we fixed our issue. So now it looks as it's supposed to on a large screen. So like here we have to the left, to the right, and on the mobile device everything is centered and looks nice and neat. Now finally, to a row we're gonna add align item center, just to make sure that everything is centered vertically. And we're gonna add some margin bottom because we're gonna need this space to the next section. Okay, let's move to the next section, which is a proper post here. So let's create section for this one. So we have post content or text, whatever we want to call it. And let's add this section. Okay. Now this section is very often used section. So let's have a look at docs here. So if you go to content and typography, you're gonna see a different options, different typography options. Yeah, I think you should put a lot of attention and give some effort yourself to get familiar with this one, because typography is one of the commonly used, think when you build websites, because it's all about typography. It's all about quoting something, making it bigger, smaller, aligning, and so on and so on. So yeah, I mean, let's take something. So let's add some paragraph here. Oops. lorem 40, which will generate 40 words for me. Then let's paste something over here, and yeah, see how this renders on a screen, right? So yeah, just play with it, just check different options like lists, inline list, and like many others. Check this styling classes, and yeah, I mean, just play with it because it's crucial in any project. So I just prepared some content to show you how text can look like depending on classes you use. So you have paragraphs, bold, notes, list, and so on, and so on. Even some images inside the text. So yeah, this is very important, especially in a project like blog. Now, before we move further, let's add some divider over here, and we're gonna add it by adding some by adding class to our section post data, which is over here, and we're gonna add class border bottom and some margin to it, which will generate this nice line over here. Obviously we could use HR, but this is just adding this this is making this bottom border visible, which is nice divider. Okay, let's move to the next section, which is a social share button. So this is something which you also want to use. And by the way, here we also have this line. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add this line also to this section. So let me just copy paste this one and add it here. Now we have this line. Okay, and now let's create a new section. So let's collapse this one and let's add some social share comments section social. Again, we're gonna reuse these classes here. And this is fairly easy, there is nothing new here, we already did it in the past, so let's just quickly go through it, share with your friends. Okay, and now let's just add these social buttons here, so you can get, that you can get them from button docs. So just go there, pick whatever you want, whichever you like. So just pick them, use them here, choose which social platform you want. I have prepared it before for you, so I'm just gonna reuse it now. Okay, so here it is. And now we want to obviously add some margins and paddings to it. So let's add this one here. So we're gonna add some paddings, some margin, and we want to center everything. Okay, so now it's ready. Let's move to the next section, which is the outer box. Let's collapse this section. And let's add new one, which is outer box. Okay, then again, obviously, let's get these classes over here. I think we're gonna need some padding here as well, and nothing fancy here. We're gonna just use a grid. So again, row, call MD3, and we're gonna put some image here and call MD9. I'm gonna put some info like paragraph strong Anna Maria Doe. Okay. And now we're just gonna add social icons again. So let me just copy paste them here. Nothing really fancy, you've seen it before. And then finally, let's add some paragraph here and let's generate some text over here. Yeah, okay, we need some margins over here. And we still need to add our image. So let's work on image first. So we have this one in image, avatar, outer avatar, and classes. Image fluid, as we want it to be responsive, shadow 1 strong and rounded. So nothing new here. Okay, let's add some margins and also here. Yeah, now it looks good and it looks even better on a mobile device. Great, so let's move to the comments section, and then again, as you can see, there is nothing fancy over here, just a grid with some data. So let me quickly go through it with you. So let's collapse this section, comments, section ID, comments. Okay, now let's add the same classes as always. Margin bottom, row, some margins. Now call to, and that's gonna be image, and call 10, and that's gonna be our text. So we have p strong Marta Dolores, p lorem 30. Let's add some margins. Let's add image, comments 1, some classes, okay. Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna make 3 comments like this. And by the way, just notice one thing, that since this one is called to, it's not getting reorganized, so it always remains in this ratio 2 to 10, which is something we want in this particular case. So I just forgot about adding some heading over here. Yeah, and now let me just add remaining. Yeah, we are missing some margin here, so let's add this one to the first row as well. Okay, this is because I have row here and its row is not closed over here. Okay, so now it's working fine. Okay, and finally the last section will allow our users to leave a comment to our post. So there's gonna be a form, and we're gonna use section form for this one. We also did it in the past, so let me just quickly take this one. We're gonna use contact form, and we're gonna change it to be a comment form. So again, reply section reply. Okay, and here it is. Oh, there is a typo, so let me fix it quickly. Leave name, email, message, send me a copy of this comment. Okay, then again, please keep in mind that this is just the front end of our form, and we have an entire series of tutorials on how to make your comments form or contact forms working. So how to deal with them, how to validate them, how to send data, how to pass data, and so on and so on. So if you want to check this one, you're gonna find a link to other tutorials in the description down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, as we are creating a lot of contents, a lot of tutorials like that. Okay, now this part is ready, the left side is ready, so now it's high time to take care of our sidebar. Let's create a section for it. Now inside the sidebar, we want to use this area over here to place an advertisement. So we're gonna use this construction which utilize 2 masks. So let's have a look at the following examples. we're gonna search for overlay and masks. So as you can see, there are two masks applied here. The first one is applied on the image itself, and the second one is getting triggered when we hover over this element. So let me copy this one and paste it directly here. Now let's change the image of it for a 2. So this is how it looks like now. And what you can see here is that, as I mentioned, there are two masks. So what we can do is change transparency and color for the default mask. So let's say we're gonna make it darker. So as you can see, it's getting very, very dark. Let me put it aside so you could see it. So this is the one, right? And if we change this one, it will adjust transparency. And we can also adjust what's gonna happen when we hover over. So for example, we could just do it like this, and now when we hover, it's get greenish. Okay, so masks are very, very powerful tools. So I also encourage you to get familiar with them, as we're gonna use them and as you're gonna see them in multiple projects. One thing which we also have to keep in mind is that MDB is a mobile first framework, which means all of these elements are very cool, but you should avoid using this on the crucial UI elements, because when you are on mobile, you cannot actually hover over, right? You cannot hover with your finger, so that's why you should avoid using this hover behavior as much as possible, because this is impossible to recreate on your mobile device. Now regarding the code, there is nothing fancy over here. What we did is we center it using flexbox, which you already know from the previous tutorials. So now let's just add another one and let's adjust some content of it. So let me just do it. Let's get rid of this one. We will replace it with H4, with text white, margin bottom 0. I'm gonna say like only now strong you best price. Yeah, we need to add also some class over here. And by the way, you can see this ripple effect over here. So this is another cool stuff which you should definitely look into. So if you go to docs, you're gonna find out that you can easily adjust a lot about this ripple effect. So we can change color, right? So for example, here we have a success and we are using this light. So let's change it to success. And now it's green. Then again, you can use different kind of colors. You can use CSS colors. You can change the duration, right? So you can make it faster, slower, very slow, very, very slow. So that could be a cool effect, for example, for some games. You can define whether you want to have this unbound ripple, which means whenever you click this ripple effect, so-called wave effect as well, very often is happening, or it's always centered, right? So regardless where I click, it always centered. You can also change the radius. So this is the small one, bigger, and a very big one. So play with it. Keep in mind very important things that you can initialize and adjust all these settings using attributes, HTML attributes, right here, like here, or you can use them JavaScript, but it's a little bit more complex. So if you can do it with HTML, just go for it. It's gonna be much lighter and better for you. Okay, let's get back to our ads. Let me quickly finish this stuff. And yeah, oh, this is green, so let's just revert this change. This was light, so let's let's make it light again. Okay, and now we want to make this one sticky, so let's move into that part. Before we move on, let's also add some rounded corners and shadows to our ads so they look good. Yeah, so now we have shadows and rounded corners, so they align with other elements. Okay, now let's move to the sticky part. So what we want to achieve is this effect, which you can see here, but unlike with navbar, this element is not sticky yet. It starts to be sticky once we hit certain depth of scrolling. So how we can achieve that? Obviously, we can't use the same class as we use in navbar, fixed top, because that will stick our section, our sidebar, to the top of the page, which we don't want to. And that's why we want to use a different class, which is sticky top. So now it gets sticky, but the problem is that our navbar is covering this part. So we'll have to fix it by adding some margin to our sidebar, and now as you can see, it's perfectly positioned with the left column, and now it starts scrolling down when we reach this depth. Finally, the last part in our project is obviously a footer. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just use predefined footer from documentation, which is this one. I'm just gonna copy that one and paste it below our main section, and our page is ready. I'm just gonna do some final cleanup, changing links in a navbar and so on, and our page will be ready. Okay, let's do final check on a mobile. Let's see if everything works as expected. Everything renders correctly. Yeah, as you can see, we don't have this hover effect here, as I said, because obviously when we place our finger over screen, it doesn't hover, but this ripple effect still works perfectly. And our footer, as the remaining part of the content, is also responsive. So yeah, we are ready with this part, so it's high time to move to the next one, which is the main page of our blog. And this is how it's gonna look like. So let's start with this now. What we're gonna do, we're gonna switch to index.html and open this one now. Okay. So this is the starting point. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna start with the basics. Now please know that since we're gonna use everything which we have learned so far in this and previous tutorials, this is gonna be very, very fast, and it shouldn't take us more than, I think, 10 minutes. So I'm gonna show you how quickly you can create entire page once you know the basics of MDB. So let's get started. We're gonna start with header. We're gonna use fixed navbar with this image, so I'm gonna copy this one and paste it here. Okay, so here it is. Now what we want to do, we want to change container. We want also change or add logo here instead of a brand. So I'm gonna change this one to logo. By the way, I think we haven't done it here. Yeah, so now we have this logo over here. Now we're gonna change cover image here. Yeah, get rid of unnecessary elements over here. Okay, now it's ready, so let's move to the main section. The main section will consist of 2 columns and it will list all our posts. So let's do it now. Adding some margins. We want to center everything, add some margins, and now we want to create this row, container row construction with call MD6 and margin bottom, and we want 6 elements like that. Now I'm gonna use image with mask, so let's move to masks, or actually hover effects. Let's copy this one, let's paste it 6 times. Now after our image we want to add some heading. Let's add some paragraph or M30. And finally we're gonna add some button over there. So let's get this one from components button. We wanna use rounded one, this one info. So info, and let's change. So let's paste it and save it, and let's see how it works, how it looks. Yeah, it looks okay. So now let me quickly update all the images. So I'm gonna select this one, select all of them, then do image slash okay. Now we also want to change text in the button, so it's not info, and it's gonna be read more, and we want to add some margins to our image. So we want have margin bottom 4 here and put it in all places. Okay, now let's just update images. So this is number 2. This is number 3. Obviously, when you create a dynamic page, that would be auto-generated by some backend language like PHP or Node. But this is something which we're going to cover in future tutorials. For now, we're using just HTML. Okay, so more or less it's ready. Now, one thing which is important to remember now is that you should always optimize your images. So if you get some image from an ad, it might be very heavy, like 2, 3, 5 megabytes. So you should always optimize it. So you can use optimizers like this one, Kraken.io, or any other, which will basically compress image. So you're not gonna see any difference. It's a lossless compression, so you're gonna lose the quality, but the size will be much smaller. Okay, now let's move to the last part, which is pagination. So let's add pagination over here, like this one, and then we're gonna add footer, and we will be done with our blog main page and a blog post. So let's get pagination from pagination. Let's use, was it rounded? Yes, let's use rounded example. So this one, and let's create new section for this. So this is post, and let's add pagination. Okay, now let's pagination. Okay, let's paste it. Now obviously we need to center it, but you already know that we can easily do that using flexbox. So just enable flexbox, deflex, and then add justify content center, and this will get centered. And finally, let's get footer. So the same one which we just used before. And after main part, let's just save it. And yeah, more or less our page is ready. So let me just fix some last stuff like this navbar links over here. Last final check to see how it works on mobile. Everything looks great. Yeah, so yeah, our project is ready. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, as there are gonna be much more than just this kind of tutorials. We're gonna have tutorials also on the backend technologies, so stay tuned for more. Now it's high time to publish our project to web, so let's do it very quickly using MDB CLI. So you just need to open your project inside the using command line or terminal and just type MDB publish. If you are MDB user, well, it will ask you whether you want to create package.json file, provide a name for your project. I'm going to call it MDB5 blog. And then I'm going to accept all the default values, and it will publish everything to the web. So if you're an MDB5 user already, you can do it right away. If you don't have MDB CLI yet, or you don't have MDB account, don't worry, just check description, and you're gonna find tutorial there how to register with MDB to get this free hosting for you. And as you can see, it's extremely easy because now our page has been created and published within a matter of minutes. So now it's published to the page, and yeah, as simple as that. So if you're an MDB user, you can use it for free. So I highly encourage you to do so. What you can also do, you can buy a domain, and you can use your own domain. So instead of MDBgo and so on, you can have like mytravelblog.com, and you can all set it up very easy. So if you want get to know more about it, just go to MDBootstrap.co to the MDB CLI section, or check tutorial in the description down below. And finally, I strongly encourage you guys to create your version of a blog using MDB and post it to our Facebook group, which you're gonna find by searching the skip coding, or I'm gonna provide you a direct link in the description down below this video. So thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned, because what we're gonna do in the next video, we're gonna create even more awesome version of this blog. Or if you want, you can continue with the next tutorial, where we're gonna create an admin dashboard panel. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.